The words hung heavy in the air between us, the ones I'd practiced 100 times in my head, maybe more. I had an affair. I finally said them, tears blurring my vision, my voice trembling. I braced myself, waiting for the explosion, the yelling, the accusations, the heartbreak, the absolute end of my marriage right then and there. But my husband David's reaction, it wasn't what I expected, not even close. Before that earth-shattering moment, my life, our life together, had felt like it was slowly fading to gray. My name is Lisa. For months, maybe even years, my marriage to David felt like walking through thick fog. We lived under the same roof, slept in the same bed, but emotionally, we might as well have been on different planets. David was always working, or maybe he used work as an escape. He was stressed, distant, barely present even when he was physically home. I'd try to talk to him, share something about my day, anything to feel connected, but I'd usually just get a tired sigh, a grunt, or a one-word answer while he scrolled through his phone or stared blankly at the TV. The silence between us grew heavier each day. I felt so incredibly lonely. It's a specific kind of loneliness, isn't it? Being lonely with someone, feeling invisible to the person who is supposed to see you more clearly than anyone else. I just wanted some attention, a spark, anything to feel like I still mattered to him, like we still mattered. And then, someone else did see me. It started at work with Michael. Just coffee breaks at first, complaining about deadlines, laughing about office politics. It felt innocent. But he listened, really listened. He looked at me when I spoke. He remembered little things I said. He made me feel like me again. Like someone interesting, someone desirable. One night, things crossed a line. We were away on a business trip. There was too much wine, maybe. A long dinner where we talked for hours, connection crackling between us. And then, a moment of weakness, a moment fueled by months, maybe years, of feeling neglected and unseen at home. It wasn't something I planned, not consciously anyway. But it happened. And once that line was crossed, it didn't stop there. The affair became this secret bubble, a temporary escape from the emptiness I felt with David. But the relief was fleeting. The guilt, that was constant. It was a heavy weight pressing down on me every single minute. Every time I looked at David, every time I had to lie about working late or meeting a friend, a piece of me chipped away. I started to hate the person I was becoming, secretive, deceitful. Living that double life became unbearable. I couldn't sleep properly. Food tasted like cardboard. I felt like I was constantly holding my breath, suffocating under the weight of my own secret. It got to the point where I knew I couldn't go on like this. The lie was destroying me just as much as it would destroy David if he found out. I convinced myself that confessing, telling him the truth, no matter how devastating, was the only way out. It felt like the only honest thing left for me to do, even if it meant losing everything I'd ever known, even if it meant facing the inevitable end. Picking the right moment to detonate your own life, there's no guide for that. How do you even begin? How do you look the person you promised forever to in the eye and tell them you broke that promise in the worst possible way? Every potential moment felt wrong, too public, too rushed, too normal. I finally settled on a quiet weeknight. The kids were tucked into bed, asleep. The house had settled into that familiar evening quiet. The only sounds, the hum of the refrigerator and the distant drone of the television. David wasn't really watching. We were sitting in the living room, him scrolling through something on his tablet, me pretending to read a book, the pages blurring in front of my eyes. The silence between us wasn't comfortable. It was thick with everything unsaid. And now, with the secret I was about to unleash, my heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. It felt like a frantic bird trapped in my chest. My palms were sweating, my mouth dry. I kept rehearsing the words in my mind. I need to tell you something. I made a mistake. I had an affair. But they all sounded pathetic, inadequate for the devastation I was about to cause. Finally, I couldn't bear the tension a second longer. I just had to get it out, like ripping off a bandage, no matter how much it hurt. "David," I started, my voice barely a whisper. He glanced up, a flicker of impatience in his eyes, probably annoyed I was interrupting whatever he was looking at. "David, there's something I need to tell you, something terrible." His expression shifted slightly, wary now. He put his tablet down slowly. "Okay, what is it, Lisa?" Taking a deep, shaky breath that did nothing to calm me, the words tumbled out in a rush, fueled by months of guilt and fear. Tears started streaming down my face before I even finished. I messed up, I choked out, the shame burning in my throat. Really badly. I had an affair with Michael from work. The name hung there, ugly and real. It's been going on for a few months now. David, I am so sorry. More sorry than I can ever say. And then, silence. The words were out. The bomb had been dropped. I held my breath, physically bracing myself for the explosion. I expected yelling. I expected him to jump up, maybe throw something. I expected tears, accusations, demands for details I didn't want to give. I expected him to tell me to get out, that we were over. I expected the marriage to shatter into a million pieces right there on the living room carpet. But David just stared. He didn't move, he didn't shout. His face went completely pale, like all the blood had drained out of it. His expression was utterly blank, unreadable. He just sat there, frozen, looking at me, or maybe through me, as if he couldn't quite process what I'd said. The silence stretched on, growing heavier and more terrifying with each passing second. It felt like hours. The air crackled with unspoken shock. It was so much worse than shouting. Shouting I could understand, react to, but this quiet emptiness, it was unnerving. My mind raced, desperately trying to make sense of it. Was he in shock? Was he so numb, so detached from me already, that it didn't even hurt him? Was he silently calculating how to make me pay? Or was he simply deciding in that awful stillness that I wasn't worth the energy of an argument? Every horrible possibility flooded my thoughts as I sat there, suspended in this unbearable limbo, waiting for the verdict on my life, delivered in the crushing weight of his silence. Just when I thought the silence would break me, David finally moved. He slowly lowered his tablet onto the coffee table, the small sound echoing loudly in the tense room. He took a deep, shaky breath, his gaze still fixed somewhere past my shoulder, avoiding my eyes. His hands clenched and unclenched on his knees. His voice, when he finally spoke, was disturbingly quiet, eerily calm. It wasn't filled with the rage or heartbreak I had steeled myself for. It was flat, empty. "Michael from work," he repeated softly, almost as if tasting the name, testing the reality of it. He paused again, another agonizing moment stretching out. Then he looked up. His eyes finally met mine, and the blankness was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't just hurt, though that was there, buried deep. It was something else, something colder, more complex. My stomach twisted with a fresh wave of dread. "Lisa," he said, his voice still quiet, but now there was a strange, unnerving intensity threading through it. There's something I need to tell you." My blood ran cold. He needed to tell me something? Now? What could possibly be worse than what I had just confessed? My mind scrambled. Did he know all along? Had someone told him? Was this his way of getting revenge, revealing some other secret to hurt me back? I held my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop, my own guilt momentarily overshadowed by a rising sense of confusion and fear. "It wasn't just you," David said, and the words landed like heavy stones, sinking into the suffocating silence between us. He finally looked directly at me, his expression unreadable, almost detached. I haven't been faithful either." The room seemed to tilt. My ears started ringing. What? Did I hear him right? David? My David? The quiet, predictable, work-obsessed husband I thought I knew? He wasn't finished. He took another breath, the confession spilling out now, methodical and cold. "For almost a year now," he continued, his voice devoid of the emotion I felt churning inside me. "With Sarah, from the gym. A year. Sarah from the gym." The pieces clicked horribly into place. The late nights he claimed were work, the sudden interest in fitness, the unexplained credit card charges I'd tried to ignore. It all suddenly made a sickening kind of sense. My carefully prepared confession, my mountain of guilt, the future I'd envisioned, whether it was begging for forgiveness or packing my bags, it all evaporated in that instant. I had walked into this prepared for his reaction to my betrayal. I had never, not even in my wildest nightmares, considered that he had his own secret, that while I was wrestling with my conscience over a few months of infidelity, he had been living a double life for nearly a year. The floor dropped out from beneath me, leaving me reeling in absolute shock and disbelief. My confession, the moment I had dreaded and rehearsed for weeks, the moment I thought would define the end of my marriage, it suddenly felt insignificant, overshadowed by the impossible revelation hanging in the air. David cheated? For a year? The shock that had frozen me moments before began to melt, replaced by something else, a confusing, boiling mix of disbelief and a strange, sharp anger. My guilt, the weight I had carried so heavily, felt suddenly warped. How could he? A year? The words finally escaped my lips, sounding strangled and foreign. You've been lying to me, to my face, for a whole year? While I was feeling sick with guilt over months? The hypocrisy hit me like a physical blow. All those nights I cried myself to sleep, hating myself for betraying him. He was doing the same thing, hiding his own secrets, perhaps even feeling justified because of our cold marriage. The carefully constructed scene I had envisioned, me confessing, him reacting, us dealing with my mess, it completely disintegrated. The script was gone. There were no lines for this. Suddenly, it wasn't just about my affair with Michael anymore. It was about us, about the gaping holes in our marriage that had apparently driven both of us into the arms of other people. The ground wasn't just shifting, it had completely collapsed beneath us. The quiet shock erupted into chaos. We weren't just dealing with one betrayal, we were staring at two, reflecting back at each other like distorted mirrors. The conversation devolved quickly. Accusations flew back and forth. "How could you?" I remember shouting, tears of anger now mixing with the tears of guilt. "How could you?" he shot back, his own voice finally rising, laced with a bitterness I hadn't heard before. "Did you think I didn't feel the distance too? Did you think I didn't notice how you pulled away? It was messy, ugly. We weren't making sense. We were just two wounded people lashing out, trying to process the fact that the reality we knew was a complete fabrication. There was no moral high ground for either of us to stand on. No clear victim, no single villain. Just two betrayers staring at the wreckage we had both created. The carefully built image of our marriage, the one we presented to the world, maybe even to ourselves, didn't just crack, it exploded. It lay in ruins around us, revealing the rot that had been festering underneath for who knows how long. We had both failed, profoundly, epically. We had failed each other, failed our vows, failed the life we were supposed to be building together. That night didn't end with any kind of resolution, not even an angry one. It just fizzled out into exhausted, stunned silence. There was nothing left to say, yet everything was still unsaid. We ended up in separate rooms. I think I went to the spare room, or maybe he did. I honestly can't remember clearly. The air in the house felt thick, poisoned. The questions hung there, heavy and unanswerable. Could we possibly forgive each other? Did we even want to try? What did this mean? Where did two people go from here when the foundation they stood on turned out to be quicksand? We were utterly, completely lost. It's been 6 months since that devastating night. 6 months since the foundations of my world crumbled, revealing not just my own betrayal, but David's too. Where are we now? Physically, we're still here. Still living in the same house, shuffling around each other like ghosts. But emotionally, we're miles apart, navigating a strange, fragile existence under one roof. We decided somehow, amidst the wreckage, to try counseling. Not just regular marriage counseling, but counseling specifically focused on mutual infidelity, which felt like a whole different beast. We go. We sit there. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we just stare at the therapist, waiting for answers neither of us has. Some days are filled with a raw, simmering bitterness. Blame gets thrown around like confetti, reopening wounds before they even have a chance to scar over. Other days, we manage a kind of fragile truce. We talk about the kids, about bills, about who's picking up groceries. The mundane logistics of life that somehow keep going even when everything else has fallen apart. But the warmth, the connection, that feels like a distant memory from another lifetime. Healing feels impossible most days. The trust isn't just broken, it feels completely obliterated, ground into dust on both sides. How do you rebuild when you know you both deliberately took a sledgehammer to the foundations? Finding out about David's affair didn't magically erase my own guilt. It didn't make what I did okay, but it added layers of confusion and complexity I never could have imagined. It forced us both, maybe for the first time ever, to truly look at how broken our communication had become, how lonely we both felt, even living side by side, how silence and resentment had created fertile ground for secrets to grow, hidden from each other. My confession wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of uncovering a much larger, more complicated failure that belonged to both of us. This whole devastating experience, it's revealed some incredibly painful truths, lessons learned in the hardest way possible. It taught me that secrets often breed secrets. When communication dies in a relationship, the isolation doesn't just affect one person. It can create cracks where darkness festers, leading both partners down hidden, destructive paths. My secret life existed right alongside his, unnoticed. I learned that mutual infidelity changes everything. The entire dynamic shifts when both partners have broken their vows. There's no simple story of victim and perpetrator anymore. It becomes a tangled mess of shared responsibility and mirrored betrayal. It showed me that confession doesn't guarantee the reaction you expect or the forgiveness you might hope for. You have absolutely no idea how someone will respond, especially if they are carrying their own heavy secrets. It highlighted that the root cause is often shared. While each person has to own their individual choice to cheat, mutual affairs often point directly to deep, shared problems within the marriage itself. Years of neglect, a profound lack of intimacy, a total breakdown in communication. And finally, I'm learning that rebuilding is doubly hard. Trying to rebuild trust after one affair is a monumental task. Trying to rebuild it when both partners have betrayed each other, it requires a level of forgiveness, vulnerability, and commitment that feels almost superhuman, maybe even impossible. Sometimes the biggest secrets, the most damaging ones, are the ones hidden right under your nose, shared in the silence between two people who stopped truly seeing each other long ago. Thank you for listening to my story. Please remember to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to turn on post notifications to be among the first to watch our videos. See you in the next video.